Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. I decided to skip right over the Deleter and Glendios decks because those aren't really as useful. And then when I get to Stargate, or I guess Glendios isn't really as useful because of all the decks having unlocked potential now in the game. And then also, we will be getting to Deleters just a bit later when I do the Stargate booster again. So I figured why go over the current version of it if we're just going to reach it again. So we decided to skip right to G-BT13. And as per entering G-BT13, we're going to be talking about Overlord today. So Overlord was I think the quote-unquote top deck in G-BT13. Meta-wise, it was considered the strongest deck. I don't think so. I think that the other decks had a little bit more potential that wasn't being shown because people weren't playing it to its fullest potential, and Overlord was just the easiest candidate to be at the top because of its ability to deal damage to people through the skills, consistent rides, and all that stuff. But honestly, when you look at it, like, Overlord can get some really dead hands sometime, and it could have the potential to not be as strong as people think. So yeah, I'm gonna show you guys a build for it today. So starting off with our grade 3s, we're gonna have 8 grade 3s as usual. I actually ran a weird lineup. Most people probably wouldn't be used to or agree with. But it works for me, in my opinion, because you don't really need the additional things, in my opinion. It also allows me to fit in some check choices that I really like. So we're going to get down to business here. So we run 8 grade 3s. I do actually just run 3 of the new Dragonic Overlord the Destiny. The reason why I only run 3 is because we do have Conroe at 4, and our starter is Conroe that can get Conroe. So as long as you start with a grade 3 in your hand, you can always get to the Destiny. Usually you run 4 of your main grade 3 so that you can have the best chance of riding it. But I'm sure in mini decks, like, if you could consistently ride the grade 3 that you wanted to ride, and you could run less of it, I'm sure that people would do so. So that's what I'm doing here. It's also to supplement the fact that we're running the Legion as the backup, and I wanted to have 3 of the X and 2 of the End. You could also switch this with 3 of the End and 2 of the X, but I really wanted to drachma my opponent kind of at the earliest chance possible when I see an opportunity that's really good, and then after that just do Legion plays, because after that, if your opponent happens to ride a grade 3 but they can't stride after that, then you can just Legion and close out the game from there. Yeah, we do have 3 of the Destiny. It has 2 abilities. So the first one is when this unit is placed on Vanguard from hand, or at the beginning of your ride phase, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do, you choose any fighter circle other than Vanguard circle and put all cards on that circle into the drop zone. So what this means is that this allows you a free retire. Most of the time it gets around resist because it targets the circle, not the card on the circle. So it gets around resist, and it also gets around lock. So if you have a locked unit or your opponent has a locked unit, you can get around it and kill it with the Destiny, which allows you to sometimes free up your own circles against Link Joker, like clear up your opponent's circles, get a little bit around resist. It does a little bit of everything, so it's really good. The second ability is when your G unit strides, you can counter blast 1. If you do, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it, then look at the top 7 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 card with Overlord in its name, put into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So this second ability is really good. It doesn't get around resist because it does choose. However, it does shoot one of your opponent's rear guards if they have a unit that is able to be shot or burned away, should you say. So you shoot one of your opponent's units, and then you look at the top 7 for an Overlord card, which fuels a lot of your Overlord stride effects like the Purge, the Ace, etc. It's just also a lot of times in this deck, it's just really good to have an Overlord in your hand, because you can do some combos with Conroe, with Doombringer High Flame, etc. So yeah, it gets an Overlord into your hand for your combos, and it also burns one of your opponent's cards. Super good effect. This is usually the grade 3 that you want to ride first all the time. Then we have the Legion pair, Dragonic Overlord the X and Dragonic Overlord the End. Dragonic Overlord the X I ran at 3, like I said before, because we want to, after we Drachma our opponent, we want to have the chance to keep Legioning over and over and over again. So that requires running 3 in my opinion. So the Legion ability is, or sorry, I guess it has 3 abilities. The first one is the actual Legion ability, where you can Legion during the main phase with Dragonic Overlord the End by putting 4 cards from your drop zone back to your deck, so it also returns triggers to your deck if you so choose. The second ability is when this unit performs Legion, search your deck for 1 card with the same name as a unit in your Vanguard circle, reveal to your opponent and put into your hand. So both of these have effects that work on based off of having another copy of the card in your hand. So if you have another copy of the X and your opponent guards your attack, then it kind of works like not a double-edged sword, but like a lose-lose for your opponent. So if they guard the attack, then you can discard an X from your hand and counterboss 1, and then you can burn 2 of their units and retire them. If they do let it hit, then you can counterboss 2 and discard the End, and then you can restand your Vanguard and get more attacks. So it's kind of just like that thing of like your opponent has to decide if they want to block it or don't block it, and then if they don't block it, after that they have to block it again. So if they take it, it's like infinitely worse than if you guard the X the first time. So I went over the X's third skill. It's the burn skill. The End is kind of the same thing, except it has the second skill where it has Dragonic Overlord and the soul gets 2,000 continuously. It's not really relevant because we don't run original Dragonic Overlord in this deck. The first one is if you have a non-Kagero Vanguard or Rearguard, this unit gets minus 2k. Also not a problem because we're in the clan fight format, so you can't mix clans, so that's not a thing. Moving on to our grade 2s, another reason why we ran 8 grade 3s instead of 9 is because we wanted to run 12 grade 2s and 13 grade 1s with the addition of Belog here. So yeah, we ran 12 grade 2s, we ran 4 Glow Heater Dragon, 4 Burning Horn Evolute, and 4 Emperor Dragon Knight Nahalem. So Glow Heater Dragon is our new 10k. I almost said 10k vanilla, but it's our new 10k from BT13. A lot of clans are starting to get 10ks like this, which, as we've now learned, was moving us towards the new standard meta that is coming in summer, I think, in a couple months, I should just say. But yeah, it was moving us towards that format where it's giving a lot of clans 10ks that have abilities and stuff like that, and that's becoming like the new meta. It also helps you against, helps you not get rushed against your opponent, and also when you ride this, you can, let's say that you ride a Glow Heater and you play 2 Glow Heaters on the Rearguard circle during your grade 2 turn. Like if your opponent's like Aquaforce or something, they're not going to be able to efficiently rush you back, which during this set, Favis was a big kind of nemesis to Overlord as far as meta decks. So when it's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard circle, you can choose up to 1 card from your hand, reveal it, and then if that card or your Vanguard is not a card with Overlord in its name, then this unit gets minus 5,000 power until the end of the turn. So basically the turn that you play it, when you're grade 2, you want to have a grade 3 in your hand to reveal so that it can still be 10k, but if you don't, it's still good to ride because at the end of the turn, it'll go back up to 10k. So it'll still be 10 on your defensive turns, it just won't be during that first turn that you play if you don't have an Overlord in your hand. Another question that people ask me all the time is, if I play this card and I'm grade 3 already, do I have to reveal a card for it to not lose 5k? No, you do not have to reveal a card because it says up to 1 card, which means 0 is also an option, because up to 1 means 0 and 1 are your options. So you can reveal 0, and then if you don't reveal a card, so the only thing to look at is the Vanguard, and the Vanguard is Overlord, so you don't lose 5k. Moving on to the next ability is on the Rearguard circle. If you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Overlord and its original card name, this unit gets plus 2,000 power for each card in your opponent's damage zone. So something to look at with Burning Horn Evolute and Glow Heater that happens every time. My mic just cuts off in the middle of the video, but yeah, sorry about that, guys. But like I was saying, something to notice about Glow Heater and Burning Horn Evolute is that they both have the ability to gain 2k for every card in your opponent's damage zone, as long as you have a grade 4 Vanguard with Overlord in its original card name. So what original card name means is that it's not the inherited name. So what that means is, like, when you stride, how you normally get the name of your grade 3 that's under it, you do not, like, the same thing does not apply for Glow Heater and Burning Horn Evolute. You have to be on an Overlord stride, basically. So you have to be on the Purge or the Ace, essentially. If you're on Drachma, if you're on Blazing Burst, if you're on Ziegenberg, none of those get 2k because those strides don't have Overlord in its original card name. Yeah, moving on to Burning Horn Evolute, we talked about its second ability already, but its first ability helps you control a little bit more. When this unit is placed on the rearguard circle, you can Soul Blast one and choose a Overlord choose an Overlord card from your hand and reveal it. If you do, you retire one of your opponent's units in the same column. So basically, this is just like a upgraded version of the old Burning Horn that was in the deck. So helps you control it a little more. You can play the grade 2 game, kind of get some advantage off of your opponent, and then efficiently rush them as well. Moving on to the last of our grade 2s, we have 4 Emperor Dragon Knight Nahalem. This card is an absolute staple at 4 in Overlord, in my opinion. It's just so good that you should just always run it at 4. It has a continuous rearguard skill that's Generation Break 1 that says, during your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Overlord in its card name, this unit gets plus 2,000. And when your grade 4 or greater Vanguard attacks, this unit gets plus 5,000. So something to notice is that this does not say original Overlord. So no matter what you're on, as long as you have an Overlord Heart, which you always will in this deck, you will be getting 5k when your Vanguard attacks. So when you're going to Ziegenberg and doing like a double attack and you have 2 Nahalem, both Nahalems will get plus 10k, plus the 2 that they already get from having an Overlord Vanguard. So they'll be 21, which is pretty good. Then we have 4 Doombringer High Flame. Doombringer High Flame has 2 abilities. It is kind of like our new Stride Fodder equivalent in this deck. When it's placed on the rearguard circle, choose up to 2 cards with Overlord in its card name from your drop zone, return them to your deck. If you returned 1 or more cards, shuffle your deck, and if you return 2 or more cards, draw a card after the shuffle. So you kind of just want to wait to hold off to use this card until you have at least 2 Overlords in your drop zone. That way you can return 2, shuffle your deck, draw 1. So it kind of pays for itself coming to the field. So it is essentially just a plus, in my opinion. And its second ability is to stride. So if at the beginning of your ride phase, you can retire it, and if you do until the end of the turn, you can stride a G unit with Overlord in its name for free. So basically what this means is you can use it even before you get to grade 2 sometimes. So, or sorry, before you get to grade 3. So if you're on grade 2, you have a Doombringer High Flame on the field. Before you ride, you can use the skill of Doombringer to retire it, and then makes your stride for that turn free, as long as you meet the conditions, and as long as you meet the condition to stride, which means both players are grade 3, etc. Then you can just ride the Destiny, use the and then just stride for free on top of that. So it's pretty cool. Then we have 4 Protect Orb Dragons, our unflip PG, pretty self-explanatory. PGs are good. Too many things out there to, that are dangerous that need to be blocked with PGs to not run 4. So that's where we run 4. We run 4 Lizard General Conroe. So Lizard General Conroe has 2 abilities as well. I discussed it briefly when we were talking about our grade 3 lineup and why we run what we run. But I usually get Conroe off of Conroe in the second turn because it's just a really consistent way to get to grade 3 and the grade 3 that you want. So the first ability is when this unit is placed on rearguard from hand, you can choose a grade 3 from your hand and reveal it. If you do, you search an Overlord card from your deck, put it to hand, and then discard a card. So you can either like search an Overlord, discard an Overlord, go for Doombringer High Flame, or you can like discard a draw trigger and do all this crazy stuff just to get, like, a lot of times I won't even have Stride Fodder in my hand, so I'll reveal the grade 3, get the Destiny, and then I'll discard something else so that I can stride. So that's really good. And then also its second ability is when it's on the rearguard circle, you can retire it, and then during the main phase, and then you choose one of your Vanguards with Overlord in its name, and it gets to countercharge 2 whenever it attacks. So for the restanders, this is really big because this allows you to countercharge 4 when you're getting 2 Vanguard attacks, or just countercharge 2 when a singular Vanguard attacks. We have one Lizard Soldier Bellog. This card kind of did come in handy in some of the playtesting that I did. Bellog has always just been a good card. It's just good against specific things and specific matchups. But when this unit is placed on the Guardian Circle, if you're Generation Break 1, at the end, you choose one of your Vanguards and it gets an ability until the end of the battle. And then it says at the end of the battle that this unit was attacked, which means that your opponent has to attack Vanguard essentially. But at the end of the battle that your Vanguard was attacked, if the attack did not hit, then you can choose one of your opponent's rested rearguards and retire it. So this prevents your opponent from doing some crazy plays sometimes, like, I don't know, like restanding their rearguard if it has really big power, and just ending the game on you if they get a stand trigger. You're able to kind of use it like a mini denial griffin that works after the battle. So for our starter, we run Lizard Soldier Conroe, the card that was known to be long banned, and then got unbanned. So this card basically has Forerunner as usual, just doesn't say Forerunner. It's the old school one where it doesn't say Forerunner, but it just says what Forerunner does. And then the activation skill is Counterblast 1, retire this unit, search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 or less Kagero card, reveal it to your opponent, put it into your hand, and shuffle. So this card allows you to tutor out like any card you need. If you need a Doombringer High Flame, if you need a Protect Orb, if you need a Lizard General Conroe, which is usually my choice to go to, but if you need a Bellog, you can get all of that stuff through tutoring by using Conroe's skill. So it's a pretty great card. Then for our triggers, we run 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal. For our crits, we run Rashaska and Fire Chase Dragon. What Rashaska does is during your main phase, if it's on the rearguard circle, when the opponent's rearguard is put into the drop zone, this unit gets plus 3,000 power. So on Ziegenberg turns, especially if you don't have any good boosters, you can slap down these cards, then retire your opponent's units using the skills that you have, and then after you do that, Rashaska will get plus 3k. So even just giving it plus 3 alone behind a glow heater is a 16k column, which is cool. And then Burning Horn Evolute like becomes a good column if you Rashaska, you use a retire skill, and then you use Burning Horn's retire skill for it to get plus 6, making it an 18k column alone. So that's pretty good. Fire Chase Dragon is one of our new crits from this set. It says when your opponent's unit in the same column as this unit is retired during your turn, you can retire this unit to retire all of your opponent's rearguards in the same column. So this allows you to get over resist even more than before. And when you're fighting against Auk Force, they have those resist columns. You can even go so far as to place 2 fire chases on either end of the field. Use them as boost as long as you need. And then when you go to use Destiny skill or something like that, you can just use Fire Chase to get rid of their other resist unit that's behind there. So it's pretty good. Then we have 4 Gatling Claw Dragon. Really just running it because when you get into it, it allows you to get rid of your opponent's starter early. If you have the additional counterblast and stuff to do it. Some people's starters are really important to them and important to the strategy of the deck, so sometimes we just have to snipe that starter extra early to put them in the dirt a little earlier. We do run 4 of the new heal trigger that they're giving all of the clans, where we bind it. We bind 1 heal in the drop zone, and we bind the one that we just G-guarded with. And then when it's discarded, like basically whenever we're G-guarding and this one hits the drop zone, if there's already one in there, like a heal, you can bind both heals, and then you can countercharge 1 or soul charge 1. So getting into our G-zone might be a little funky. I will tell you guys some replacements that you can do though. This is just personally what worked for me. So we have 2 Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Overlord, the Purge. So the Purge is our newest cover card stride of the G-BT13, and what it does is it has 2 abilities. The first one is an activation ability during the main phase that says choose a face down card from your G-zone, turn it face up, and then choose a card with Overlord in its name from your hand and put it into your soul. And if your opponent has 4 or less damage, they have to take a damage, and if they check a trigger, those effects are nullified. So they cannot like power up their Vanguard from getting hit by this ability. It just does them a free damage basically. The Generation Break 3 is this unit's drive. The drive checks are equal to the number of cards in your opponent's damage zone, meaning the later you use this card, the better it will be, because if your opponent has 5 cards in the damage zone, guess what? You get 5 drive checks. So a lot of people consider that broken. Me personally, I don't, just because I never check triggers on the 5 drive checks. It's just, you know, I'm just unlucky like that, I guess. Then this is also the set, as per the name, Ultimate Stride, where we are getting our new mechanic, Ultimate Stride, that comes in. So we have the Ultimate Stride here for Dragon Empire, Zero Dragon of Inferno Drachma. We of course run 1 because after we use it, it gets rid of our entire G-Zone. And yeah, you only want to use it in a situation where you feel it is necessary, or you feel like you can gimp your opponent basically. But the skill is Counterblast 2 when this unit is placed on the Vanguard circle. You can retire all of your opponent's units, including their Vanguard, bind them face up, and your opponent chooses 3 cards from their hand, discards 2, and rides 1. So if you know that your opponent has no grade 3s in your hand, it's always a perfect chance to Drachma, because they could just straight lose the game from getting Drachma like that, because they would have to ride a grade 2 or lower. I would say if you Drachma them and they have to ride a grade 1 or a grade 0, they're definitely going to lose the game, because there's just not many ways to recover from that usually. Ooh guys, sorry. A bit tired this morning. So then we run 4 Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Overlord, the Ace. What the Ace does is it is our Restanding Vanguard, or one of them, our Restanding Stride Vanguard. This one, the reason why we run 4 is because we have like stuff like Glow Heater and Burning Horn Evolute that we talked about that need that Overlord specific name in the Stride unit to get their power. So we wanted them to get their power while also retaining our restand and stuff like that. So this card Counterblast 2, and you flip a copy of the Ace from your G-Zone face up. Then if the number of cards in your G-Zone is 2 or more, which means not Generation Break 2, if the cards in your G-Zone are 2 or more. So it's basically Generation Break 3, you can think of it that way. Then at the end of the battle that it attacked, you can choose a card from your hand and discard it. Discard an Overlord card as well, and then it restands and gets plus 5,000 power. So it can be a really strong card. I will say if you want to run something different, you can add a Purge, and then you can add a the new Blaze Stride that retires 1. I just personally didn't like that card because I felt like whenever I went into it, I wasn't really getting anything done. The card that I would draw would usually be Boo Boo, and then I would just be going into a Stride that's kind of useless, and then counterblasting, so wasting my counterblast for it as well. Then moving on, we have Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Blazing Burst Dragon. Blazing Burst Dragon is our GB8. The GB8 says when this unit attacks a Vanguard, retire all of your opponent's units. All of your rear guards get 10,000 power, and then if the number of units that were retired from your opponent's side is 3 or more, then this unit gets plus 10,000 in the crit. So this card can be a really good finisher, especially paired with us running 8 crit and rear guards that have big swings. That could be a good finisher sometimes. You just have to kind of gauge it out and see what would be better. Then we have 2 Flare Arm Ziegenberg. Flare Arm Ziegenberg came out in G-BT13, but it's still a very good stride for the deck. Kagero in general. It has 3 abilities. The first one is Blaze. The second one is if you Soul Blast 1 and flip a copy of itself during the main phase, you can shoot one of your opponent's units. And then the skill number 3 is Generation Break 3. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked. If your Vanguard is blazing, then you can Counterblast 1, discard however many cards equal to the number of cards your opponent controls, and then you can restand this unit. So what that means is you can attack with Ziegenberg, and if your opponent has 0 units on the board, you can Counterblast 1, and that's all the cost that will take to restand. However, if your opponent has 5 rear guards on the board, you can Counterblast 1, and you'll have to discard 5 to restand. So you really want to do it when you can clear your opponent's board out for the maximum efficiency. Then we run 1 Air Element Sabreeze. Sabreeze, you guys know what this is. It's just to, stride on our opponent if they decide to stay on grade 2 against us. Moving on to G-Guardians, we have 1 Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon, Advanced Guard Dragon. This is our G-Flip Guardian from the Fighters Collection. It allows us to Soul Blast 1 and choose a G-Guardian from our G-Zone and turn it face up. And when this unit is placed on guard circle, that's when we activate it. And if we do, we choose one of our opponent's rested grade 1 or less rear guards and retire it, which could be useful in some situations like having Night Rose, the Night Rose grade 1, like this can get around that. New Gear Chronicle has some good grade 1s behind it. Cruising, it can pop a Cruising Dragon if you really need to. Can prevent a lot of nasty grade 1 effects that you wouldn't want for them to go off if you're just guarding anyways. Then we have one Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon Defeat Flare Dragon. This is hands down the second best G-Guard, I will say, in the entire deck, or in the entirety of Kagero altogether. And it says when this unit, during the battle that your Vanguard attacked with Overlord, during the battle that your Vanguard with Overlord in its name was attacked by your opponent's Vanguard, so it has to be a Vanguard to Vanguard attack. When this unit is placed on guard circle, you pay the cost, and then you retire all the rear guards in your opponent's back row, meaning that you can stop a lot of nasty effects with that as well. They also lose boost if they're currently getting boost from a unit. They lose boost when you burn all their units in the back row. It does get around resist as well because it targets all, or just says all instead of targeting. Moving on, we have Flame Wing Steel Beast and Griffin. This is the card that I was talking about when I said that Defeat Flare was second. Denial Griffin is the #1 probably feared G-Guardian, and for a good reason. When your opponent attacks you, you can G-Guard into this to just kill it, no matter what power it is. The only way that they can get around it is if they have resist on their unit. So, Counterblast 1, when it guards, guarding, or when it guards, retire the unit that's attacking. Then to finish out our G-Zone and our G-Guardian lineup, we have one Divine Dragon Knight Absalom, and the skill is when there's a Vanguard to Vanguard attack, you can Counterblast 1, and this unit gets plus 10,000 shield for each of your opponent's open rear guard circles. So this card helps you guard really big things that you wouldn't be able to guard with a PG and stuff like that, and allows you to press forward while not having. It's like your only G Guardian that has shield gain, I guess I should say, because all the rest of the G Guardians for Kagero are really small because they depend on them killing stuff. So if you can't kill stuff, you're pretty screwed when you're trying to defend, at least from big attacks. So we're reopening our area right here so that we can get into the matches. We're gonna load Overlord 1. So we're playing against Gold Paladin for the first game. It seems like our opponent goes first, rides. We ride Conroe, attack him. He no guards. He takes a damage. It is Gary, the stand trigger. Then he rides Henrius, calls the grade 1 to get his rightful Gurguit that he needs, and he discards Salonius. Then we guard his rear guard but take his Vanguard. And then we ride, we use Conroe to get Conroe. We play Burning Horn Evolute to get rid of his grade 1. We play Conroe to Conroe, discard a grade 3, Conroe to Conroe, discard a grade 3, and then we attack for 16. Another good tactic is this just constantly thins out your deck doing it this way in the early game, so it allows you to check more triggers later on. He rides and attacks my Vanguard for 16. He does not check a check, and then we get a draw trigger. So we ride the Destiny. I don't think it's meaningful to use the Soul Blast skill to kill a starter, so we use the Counterblast skill to look at top 7, look for an Overlord. We actually end up missing it, which is really unlikely, but I guess it's cool. We use Conroe to retire and make our Vanguard able to countercharge 2 when it attacks, which is what it did. We check 3 non-triggers, and that's pretty annoying, but because he took that damage, my Burning Horn Evolute goes up by 2,000 power, becomes 22. He goes to stride into Gurguit Helios. He top 4s, gets Salonius, and then he calls the grade 1 to the back row as rest. Unite is active. So then he attacks me for 13. I guard with a 10. He attacks with 30 to Vanguard. I have no guard. He gets quadruple drive. And luckily for him, he gets a heal, so he's able to heal 1 damage off. I really wanted to force some pressure on him next turn, so kind of sad that he healed. But we go into Ziegenberg. we kind of bust one. We look at the top 7 cards of our deck. Add a Overlord to the hand, and then we Soul Blast one, flip with Ziegenberg so that we can get G-BT13 and retire units at the same time. And then we're attacking into his Vanguard for 26. He PGs, we check 2 cards. Neither of them are triggers. We get a draw trigger though at the very end there. And then we counterboss one and discard one to restand. And then he G-guards our final attack, which is 21. And then pass turn. He goes into Gurgwit Helios again. He calls Canarius to the rearguard circle. Looks at the top, calls Henrius. So he's using the skill of his grade 1 to put his grade 2 back to the bottom, draw a card. So it seems like he would have checked the stand trigger there had he not been, you know, had he not been trying to do that skill. So he attacks for 11, then he attacks for 51. We do no guard it because we can't really guard our attack that big and efficiently guard everything else the same if he checks double crit. So we decided to just let him go for the double crit. He does not get it. He gets a single crit, however, which is making us take 2 damage. Unfortunately, those 2 cards were Doombringer, because as you guys will see, I'll be trying to return Overlords in my hand quite desperately. So we stand and stride into the Purge. I counterboss one. I kill one of their cards. I look at top 7. For an Overlord, I use the skill of Conroe to retire it, and they get skill. And then we reveal with Conroe, we get a grade 3, and we we discard a grade 3. Then we use a second Conroe so that we can unflip 4 when the time comes. Then we attack for 26. He guards for a 1 to pass, 3 to pass, 4 to pass. So he guards for a 4 to pass. We get 5 dry checks. First one PG, second one Burning Horn, third one crit trigger, 4th PG, and 5th Glow Heater. So he wastes all those cards to guard from his hand. We attack him for 16, and then we attack him for 24, which is ridiculous that the last card in his hand was a grade 3 because we almost barely survived that. He does use Gurgwit's skill, goes on to Heavenly Law of Gurgwit, uses the Stride skill to Kind Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, and then he calls you into the board, gets a unit at rest because of Unite. He decides to play it to the side, moves the stand trigger up, and then he activates the skill of Heavenly Law to counterboss 1 flip and discard 1 card. And then his front row gets plus 5k or plus 2k for every villager going on. Yeah, so he gets plus 2k, and then he's swinging. We actually use Belog to retire his card, and then he attacks with Gurgwit, checks top 7, calls a Bellymoor to the field, shuffle, and then he uses Bellymoor skill to look at top 3 and call a card behind Vanguard. So we PG this one. He checks 1, checks 2, stand trigger, and then checks 3, Henrius. He goes to attack us with a really big attack, and then we just PG. We end up going into the Purge, I think, one more time. Oh, we actually went into the Ace this time. So I kind of busted 1, looked at the top 7. I thought I would get it. Unfortunately, I did not. So we're kind of sitting there without it like an Ace turn now, which is fine because we just have triple drive, you know, like not that big of a deal. But we checked a draw trigger, and a heal trigger, healing down net damage, and he takes damage and 6 damage heals, which actually does end up being important. And then he guards with all the cards in his hand on board. So then he draws for turn, see if he gets Stride Fodder, and then he just played the Quills that he drew to the hand of the board. We're G-guarding here into Denial Griffin. We're putting, or sorry, not Denial Griffin, Defeat Flare. We're putting 2 grade 3s back, and then we're binding 2 heals to counter charge. He checks a heal, a crit. Oh yeah, I forgot it's only Twin Drive. So he attacks for 19, and then I just guard it casually. So we stride, we check top 7 for an Overlord. We finally got there, boys. So I was thinking during this, and then we attack for 26. He no guards. We get a crit trigger, crit to Vanguard, power to rear guard. He does get another heal, healing off of damage, and then a PG. We don't use skill because we can't, you know. Oh, sorry, we do use skill. We discard 2, and then we attack for 31 to Vanguard. We check a critical trigger, all effects to rear guard. Check heal trigger, all effects to rear guard. And then he just takes that 6 damage, that clean 6 damage. We say GG to each other, and that was the end of game 1 that I won. We're reopening area here. Jeez, I have no idea why I'm so tired today, guys. Maybe I've just been putting in too much work lately. So we're playing in Spike Brother for the second match. I go first, I ride, pass, he rides, attacks me, checks a critical trigger, I take 2 damage. I draw, use Glow Heater, use Conroe, get the Destiny, discard, then I attack for 17. So he kind of does the equivalent of Mecha Trainers, and then he checks a draw trigger, so, you know, just kind of like that's how it works. However, we did play a bunch of cards, and so we do crit to Vanguard, power to rear guard that we just checked, and then we do 21, so he eats it all. He G-assists for a grade 3. Thankfully, he gets a Rising card. I don't know what he runs besides Rising. He gets rid of Agrius. And then he strides into Supernova, Rising Supernova. He attacks Vanguard and says charge, we no guard. So he gets 3 checks, and none of them are anything of importance, really. And then it's our turn now. We stride into the Purge. Check top 7, get a card. We use Condor skill, and then Doombringer High Flame to return 2 Overlord to our deck, shuffle and draw. So we check some crits when he PGs us, and then we're able to attack him for 25. He G-guards, uses no skill. And then we attack for 28, and he G-guards again. This time he does use skill. He strides for his own turn, goes into Dirty Picaro. He uses Dirty Picaro skill to counter boss 2, put a card into your soul, and flip a card. He calls Frog Raider, Razor Bruggard, and Great Rising Star, along with the new starter for the little combo that they have. So he checks a draw trigger, heals, and then another heal trigger and heals. So I'm like, wow. So he attacks for 35, and then attacks for 30. So then we're guarding his attack with 30k. Rising Bomber goes to bottom. And then he attacks me for 33. And I can't take it because he's just going to get another attack after that, a restand Frog Raider. So I couldn't really do anything except for take it and just lose the game. So that was game 2 that we played. And we are reopening area for game 3. Overlord 3. We're gonna go 8 speed now, super speed. We're playing against OTT. He goes first and calls a psychic, 2 psychic birds, puts them in solo draw. I attack him, he takes a damage. He plays 2 grade 2s, he uses Tankman skill to counterbounce 1 drop and draw 2. I happen to get 2 damage triggers, so his third attack just doesn't hit. I do my own grade 2 rush using Burning Horn Evolute to retire his card. And I use Conroe to search, do all the Overlord searches, attack for 9, attack for 17, and then attack for 16. So he rides a card that's 10k when it's Oracle. He calls the same thing in Tankman. We take it, and then we take Vanguard attack. We get a draw trigger, power draw. We ride the Destiny, retire, and then we use we decided to sorry, I was like trying to figure out why I didn't Sabriz, and it's because he rerode. So we attack Vanguard, he no guards, and then we attack super big. He rides Sakya because this build is actually, I know people are going to ask me that, this build is actually focused on returning the cards that on place draw you cards in this deck. So he had to ride Sakya, unfortunately, because he didn't have the Susanoo in his hand. So he rode the Sakya as backup. He does heal 1 off, but that doesn't really help against Overlord because I can just deal you a damage for free. So I do decide to deal him that damage in the form of a Susanoo. So then I attack for 26, counter charge 2. He G-guards for 35 and then 45, so that's a 4 to pass. We check 5 cards. PG, 2, PG, 3, and grade 1. See, I told you guys, 5 checks, never check triggers. But we attack 16, and then we attack with our other rear guard. He G-guards again, this time into the G-Flip Guardian, getting himself an extra card that he can block with. We pass turn to him, and he strides with the Sakya. I think the reason why he didn't ride stride is because he wanted to be able to effectively use Ichikishima. So he uses the GB3 of Ichikishima, flips, and then he just decides to attack. Unfortunately, he can't really do anything with the way his hand is, so I just PG. And then he, unfortunately for him, checks nothing but a stand trigger. So now I stride. I was considering going to the ace here, but I had no second Overlord in my hand, so I didn't want to risk it. As you guys can see, I checked top 7 and didn't get it, so it was good not to risk. So I used Doombringer to put back 2 Overlord, shuffle, draw, and I draw an Overlord. And then I just ended up attacking for 33. He no guarded, and I'm just like, dang. I check a crit power to Vanguard. And then I check another crit. At this point, I just know the game's over because I've already seen him use 2 heals. And then he takes it, and that ends up being game. But yeah, so that was the Overlord FutureFight Vanguard video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up on the video. Helps a lot more than you guys think. Also hit the subscribe button and the bell button to keep updated with me on when my new videos come out and to support the channel. Also in the description down below, you can check out our social medias: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. For those of you who support the channel on Patreon, thank you so much. You mean bunches and bunches to the channel, and I thank you guys for continued support. But with that being said, this has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace, guys.